Let's head on over to the hotline and bring in someone that people actually want to hear talk, not the two of us. We're going to be talking to Kayler Smith, joining us from out there in the Permian Basin, the sports director at KMID Big 2 Sports. Kayler, how are you?
I am good. How are you guys? It's Thursday night. We got football happening tonight. We're excited to get going.
It is game day. So a big thing we like to do on the show is allow people to tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us an elevator pitch, kind of your background story and how you ended up out there in the Permian Basin area.
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't have a too extensive of a history because I just graduated from the distinguished Missouri School of Journalism, but I did work there for 2 years at the NBC affiliate in Columbia and got those, kind of initial 2 years under my belt before getting a job out here in Odessa, Texas. Not the prettiest part of the world, but it sure is a good time. I'm enjoying it. So that's basically it.
Good. Our managing editor at Dave Campbell's Texas Football graduated from Mizzou, so excuse us if we have a little bit of bad taste in our mouth about that.
That Mizzou mafia is all over the place in places you wouldn't even expect it.
It really is. So I want to ask you, obviously, you went to school over there in Missouri, and Missouri's got pretty good high school football and stuff. When
That's
you
right.
got to the Permian Basin, I mean, everyone has seen Friday Night Lights. Let's be honest. We knew.
Sure.
I'm sure you had some sort of an idea, but was it shocking to you that when you got there, you realized, oh, that's not just how it was in a movie. I'm talking like that's how it is in real life.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously the passion is there. I feel like nationwide, that passion for your local teams is going to be there no matter where you are in the country, especially in small towns. But the big difference is seeing these massive stadiums, like these college-like stadiums that hold 20,000, upwards of 20,000 people. That's the biggest difference to me. But I'll tell you what, I was out at my first Permian game ever of my career last week. And I feel like because I had read the book, I totally could feel that energy of like how important it was to people there.
Well, and see, that's the funny thing, because when you take a look at the Permian Basin, you're not just covering those big schools. We'll talk about those first, though. There's the big schools, and then, I mean, really, you have every kind of flavor of Texas high school football out in that area. So let's stick to the topic of the big schools. You were just a Permian game. You've got Midland. You've got Midland Legacy. When you take a look at the Andrews, even, we can consider 4A Division I in there. When you take a look at these big school programs, what are the vibes that you're getting early on in the season?
I'll tell you that I think I was most impressed by Legacy, and I don't think that's a shock to anybody, right? By Legacy right out of the gate in the preseason. They're obviously picked to win their district. I think they're probably my favorite to win that second district of 6A. But Permian's looking tough too, and I know their week one didn't necessarily have the star-studded effect that people hoped against Abilene. It was a low-scoring affair. But watching them last week, they came alive, and not only their offense came alive, but their defense was backing it up. And that's maybe where I think that they can get Legacy slipping is on the defensive side of the ball. If they can limit what Marcos Davila can do in the pocket. I mean, we saw it last week. He was limited to 2 passes against Tascosa, which is insane for a pro-style quarterback and his stature.
Kind of taking on that same topic of players to watch, while doing my research, I looked into Andrews pretty heavily just because they were kind of the only 4A team in the Permian Basin. I saw that there was a little bit of a quarterback situation going on over there. We kind of expected going into the season it was going to be EJ Lopez, but that's not what happened last weekend against Monahans.
No, and I'll tell you what, that was a surprise to all of us. Whenever we got those highlights back from my reporter, I was like, are you sure you got that name right? It wasn't Lopez. I made her double check for me before we said it because I didn't want to get it wrong. But yeah, sure enough, Ashton Galvin has really come out and proved himself early. So I'll tell you, whenever I first went out to Andrews at the beginning of August, it was all EJ Lopez. Tom Harvey told me that was going to be their guy. And in fact, they were even going to open up his game to just be not being a pro-style quarterback, but also letting him be a dual threat. And so it was really surprising to see somebody else's name there on the stat sheet last week. But obviously he did an incredible job. I don't know what the disconnect was with Lopez. We didn't get to find out enough about it. But he only scored 11 points against Randall in week one. And then we see Galvin, and Galvin's leading them to a 30-point victory, scoring nearly 60 points. He was 13 for 14 on the day, so nearly a perfect day, and he was averaging almost 16 yards per pass.
Sheesh.
So and they told me when I was out there this week, he actually won our Athlete of the Week this week. So I was just out there talking to them on Tuesday, and I asked him, hey, are you going to start? Can you tell us? We won't tell anybody.
Well trained.
Galvin said he was going to start this week against Greenwood. So what we gathered from Coach was that it's going to be a fluid 2-quarterback situation, and whatever suits the team that they're playing best is the one that they're going to go with. That's not to say we won't see Lopez on the field. It might be even like a quarter-by-quarter or a drive-by-drive situation, but Lopez also plays on the other side of the ball, I believe. So,
well, it's nice that they have 2 guys that they trust, under center like that. But there seems to be a lot of really good quarterback play in the Permian Basin region. What are some of those other quarterbacks you expect to have a really great year? A lot of pro-style quarterbacks, it sounds like.
Yeah, so I already mentioned him, but I'll mention him again because I just am really impressed by him, especially at being 16, 17 years old. Is Midland Legacy's Marcos Davila. He's already got, in the teens of Division I offers. He just earned his 4th star. He actually came into this season a 3-star quarterback with about 15 D1 offers. And then after 1 week, after their first game, he got upgraded to being a 4-star. So that just shows how explosive he's coming out in his junior season. I was really surprised to see how much he was limited last week, but that might have more to do with Tascosa's defense than it does necessarily, his performance. So he's one that we're going to be watching all year long, and we expect more out of him. And he's expected to get his 5th star by his senior year. That's the crazy part. He's only a junior.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely one that we've been keeping on our statewide radar. She's Kayler Smith, the sports director of KMID Big 2 Sports. Kayler, a couple more questions for you here, obviously. So that's talking a little bit about more of the big schools. Before we get to the 6-man ranks, because there's plenty to talk about there, I do want to stop and head over to 2A, because the Wink Wildcats, which Coach Brian Gibson has been doing with them, just kind of turning into a perennial powerhouse here. But, I mean, very, very impressive wins so far over Reagan County and over Ozona. What can you say about what you're seeing from what seems to be a very high explosive Wink offense?
I think it comes with trust. These guys have played together for a long time together now. And not only that, but trust between a quarterback and a coach is so important. And of course, quarterback is coach's son. So he's an explosive player, and you see his, stars shining right now. And I think it's all just coming together for them right now at the right time.
And then I want to go ahead and dive down into the 1A ranks. First off, how familiar were you with 6-man football before you ended up in the Permian Basin?
Not at all. Not at all. In the Midwest, they play 8-man mostly for the smaller schools.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So obviously there is kind of that District of Doom. We're planning on talking about it a little bit more later, but want to kind of get your take there. When you look at District 7, 1A Division 1, so you've got Garden City, Rankin, Borden County. I mean, that's a power nexus in the 6-man ranks.
Sure.
What have you heard around there? Is there a lot of fun feuding in the Permian Basin over those 3 teams?
I think so, actually, especially between Rankin and Garden City, because those are 2 that we're expecting a lot out of this year, and Rankin's already shown that they're gonna give us that this year. I think they scored upwards of 60 points last week, which I know isn't super unusual for 6A or 6-man, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
But Rankin's one that we're following closely for sure, and then Garden City I think is going to give them a run for their money too.
And we're going to talk about this a little bit later as well, but when you think of the Permian Basin, usually what comes to mind is Odessa Permian, right? The powerhouse,
sure.
The history behind that school, their state runs all the years back. We're curious, do you see any of the Permian Basin teams getting back to that level anytime soon? Pretty much you can talk about all classifications.
Yeah, so I would say my favorites right now to go far this season, and I've got them written down here, is Legacy. They're my favorite for the 6A Division 2. Andrews, they're my favorite of our 4A Division 1s. But Fort Stockton, that's another one that I've got my eye on this year. I think they're just right on the cusp of something great. I mean, they've had great seasons the past 6 or 7 years. They just haven't broken that barrier in the playoffs. And I think they're right on the cusp of that. And I know from talking to them, that is exactly what they're seeking this year and what they're working hard for every single day out on the field.
Right. And then finally, we want to ask you, if we are ever out in your neck of the woods, where are we eating?
Oh gosh. I've only lived here a few months. Oh no.
Hard-hitting journalistic questions coming here.
Oh shoot. That's a tough one. That's so tough.
What type of food is good out there?
Mexican is really big out here, but like more authentic Mexican than Tex-Mex, which I like the Tex-Mex a little bit more, so it's a little bit disappointing to me. But definitely, I feel like Mexican rules around here.
Well, you can say like we're out there then.
Yeah.
Like we're all here for that.
Also, come to DFW because we got a lot of Tex-Mex here.
Heck yes, I love DFW. If you want me out there anytime, I'll be there.
Absolutely.
There we go. She is Kayler Smith, the sports director at KMID Big 2 Sports out there in the Permian Basin. Kayler, really appreciate you hopping on. Best of luck this season, and hopefully we'll see you sometime soon.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.